A geological survey satellite detected a magnetic field 600 meters beneath the Atacama Desert. It was perfectly symmetrical, and it was pulsing. You are looking at the driest, non-polar desert on Earth. Some weather stations here have never recorded a single drop of rain. It is a sterile, empty landscape, or so we thought. The survey's public mission was to map mineral deposits, but the anomaly's signal wasn't random geological noise. It had a repeating pattern. A clean, mathematical frequency of 1.618 Hz. The official explanation, filed in a publicly accessible report, was an unusual formation of lodestone. Case closed. But why was a follow-up expedition, codenamed Project Chimera, immediately classified by 3 separate government agencies? Think about that for a moment. A rock formation so sensitive it requires international secrecy. It just doesn't add up. For 2 years, a covert team worked in absolute isolation. Their task? To drill down to the source. The rock was ancient granite, some of the hardest on the planet. Drill bits made of tungsten carbide, capable of boring through 3 meters of solid steel, would shatter in hours. The temperature at the drill head reached 800 degrees Celsius. The team worked in 24-hour shifts, their hands raw, their ears ringing from the constant scream of the machinery. They were fighting the planet itself. Then, on May 4, 2013, at a depth of 612 meters, the drill broke through. The resistance vanished. The screaming stopped. There was only silence. And here is where the story gets strange. They pulled up a core sample. It wasn't rock. It wasn't metal as we know it. Under electron microscopy, the sample revealed a crystalline lattice of an unknown metallic alloy, fused at a molecular level with what appeared to be silicified protein chains. It was part machine and part biology. The lab reports, leaked by a source inside the project, contained a single, chilling observation. When a microfracture was deliberately made in the sample, it healed itself. Within 3 minutes, the crack was gone. No seam, no scar, just perfection. The history books tell us that complex metallurgy began around 4000 BC. This material was carbon-dated. The results were suppressed, but we have them. The biological components were at least 1.2 million years old. So you have a self-healing, biomechanical object, the size of a small town, buried for over 1 million years. The team sent down a fiber optic camera, a tiny eye lowered into the darkness. They saw ribbed arches curving away into the gloom, like the inside of a colossal rib cage. The magnetic pulse they were tracking suddenly changed. It was no longer a steady beat. It was a response. They had knocked, and something was answering. The question was no longer what they had found. The question was, who? The question was who? This is where the official narrative crumbles, where the smooth facade of accepted history cracks open. You see, the self-healing alloy, the biomechanical structure found 612 meters deep in the Atacama, was not an isolated incident, not entirely. But you won't find it in any textbook. In 1931, during an archaeological dig in the ancient city of Ur, a team led by Sir Leonard Woolley unearthed something peculiar. They were excavating the Royal Cemetery, a site rich with Sumerian artifacts from around 2600 BC. Among the gold and lapis lazuli, buried near the tomb of Queen Puabi, lay a collection of what Woolley described as unidentifiable metallic cylinders. These cylinders, roughly 15 centimeters long, were made of an iron alloy. This was 1,500 years before iron smelting was thought to exist in this region. Think about that for a moment. An iron object dating to a time when only copper and bronze were supposedly worked. The cylinders were dismissed as an anomaly, perhaps meteoric iron, a fluke of nature. But their internal structure, when later analyzed in the 1960s, showed signs of intentional forging. How did they achieve this? The Sumerians were masters of intricate craftsmanship. But ironworking? That's a different league entirely. The official report never elaborated. The cylinders were catalogued and placed in a museum archive. They gathered dust. Nobody asked the truly unsettling question: how could a civilization without the technology create such an object? Fast forward to 1901, off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera. Sponge divers stumbled upon a shipwreck. What they recovered would rewrite our understanding of ancient engineering. The Antikythera mechanism. It was a complex astronomical calculator, a device of bronze gears and dials, capable of predicting eclipses and planetary movements with astounding accuracy. It was 2,000 years old. This level of mechanical sophistication was not seen again until the 14th century. We are talking about a device that could track celestial bodies with a precision comparable to 18th century clockwork. Yet it was built by hands that supposedly only knew simple levers and pulleys. The academic world struggled to reconcile this. It was an out-of-place artifact, an OOPArt, so baffling that some theorized alien intervention. But what if the explanation is far simpler and far more disturbing? What if these were not isolated flashes of genius, but echoes of a forgotten knowledge? A knowledge that somehow persisted, like embers under ash. Consider the Baghdad battery, discovered in 1938. A clay jar containing a copper cylinder and an iron rod, dating back to 250 BC. When filled with an electrolyte, it generated an electric current. An electric battery, 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta. This device, like the others, defies the established timeline of human technological development. You see a pattern emerging here, don't you? Objects that shouldn't exist, created by civilizations that shouldn't have the means. The common thread among these discoveries is not just their advanced nature, it's the way they are consistently downplayed, explained away, or simply filed under unsolved mystery. But what if these mysteries are not isolated incidents? What if they are fragments of a much larger, cohesive story? A story that suggests an advanced understanding of materials and mechanics existed long before our history books tell us it did. The self-healing alloy found in the Atacama Desert is not an isolated wonder. It fits into a disturbing lineage, a lineage of forgotten technology, a technology that could build, and perhaps even maintain, something on an unimaginable scale. And here's where it gets truly unsettling. What if these ancient artifacts, these impossible objects, are not just remnants of a past civilization, but clues. Clues left behind by something that understood biomechanical engineering on the level we are only now beginning to grasp. Something that built a colossal, self-repairing structure in the desert. The official reports will tell you these are all coincidences. An accidental iron deposit here, a brilliant but isolated inventor there, a random combination of elements forming a battery. But how many coincidences does it take before it becomes a pattern? What if these objects are not just random anomalies, but deliberate signposts? Signposts leading to the very entity now stirring beneath the Atacama. What if the Antikythera mechanism, the cylinders, the Baghdad battery, are not just ancient curiosities, but echoes of the who that now lies beneath the sand, awakening? But deliberate signposts leading to the entity stirring beneath the Atacama. It changes everything. What if the Antikythera mechanism, the cylinders, the Baghdad battery are not just ancient curiosities, but echoes of the who now awakening? This question gnaws at the edges of accepted history. You see, the official reports from Project Chimera, the ones that were quickly classified, tell a different story than the public was given. 3 documents were declassified in 2019. What they contain, the Chilean government has never officially acknowledged. One document details an unexpected seismic event. On May 5, 2013, less than 24 hours after the drill broke through at 612 meters, a magnitude 3.2 tremor was recorded. It was centered directly beneath the anomaly. The public was told it was a natural microquake. But here's where it gets interesting. The seismic signature was not typical for a tectonic shift. It was a rhythmic, almost mechanical vibration. Imagine a colossal heart beating deep underground. This was its pulse. Another classified report details a significant increase in the magnetic field strength radiating from the anomaly. The initial reading was 1.618 Hz. After the drill breach, it surged. It peaked at 3.236 Hz, exactly double the original frequency. Think about what that means. A deliberate, controlled change. It implies awareness. It implies a response. The team on site reported strange electromagnetic interference. Their equipment malfunctioned, radios crackled with static, sensitive instruments registered phantom signals. It was chaos. Nobody officially reported this. This data was never published, until now. The third document, perhaps the most disturbing, details the behavior of the core sample itself. The self-healing alloy, which had repaired its microfracture, began to exhibit more complex reactions. When exposed to a weak electrical current, it pulsed with a faint internal light, a soft, bioluminescent glow. The scientists on Project Chimera, initially focused on material analysis, suddenly found themselves confronting something alive. A material that responded to stimuli. A material that had been dormant for 1.2 million years. And now it was reacting. The official narrative would have you believe it was just an unusual rock. But you've seen the evidence. You know the truth is far stranger. The question now becomes, what happens when something this ancient, this vast, and this complex begins to stir? What were the true implications of that drill breaking through? The team, led by Dr. Elena Petrova, a brilliant but notoriously skeptical geologist, began to argue. Petrova insisted on more data. Her superiors wanted containment. They wanted silence. The deeper they looked, the more questions arose. The self-healing property was not merely structural. When exposed to certain organic compounds, the alloy would subtly reconfigure its surface. It was as if it was tasting its environment. This wasn't passive. This was active. And here's the part nobody talks about. The area around the drill site, 500 meters in every direction, was immediately declared a no-fly zone. Not for military exercises, not for environmental protection, but for unspecified atmospheric disturbances. The official reason given to the local authorities was extreme weather variability. But the Atacama is one of the most stable climates on Earth. It simply doesn't add up. Why such a tight perimeter? What were they truly trying to prevent from getting in or out? The local indigenous communities, who had lived in the Atacama for thousands of years, have ancient stories. Tales of a stone heart buried beneath the desert, a heart that beats in rhythm with the stars. These stories were dismissed as folklore, superstition. But what if they were echoes of a much older truth? What if their ancestors had witnessed something similar? The academic world often ignores oral traditions, favoring written records. But this oversight can be catastrophic. The Stone Heart legend describes a time when the desert itself would sing, a low hum that resonated through the ground, a hum that brought both life and destruction. The magnetic field pulsing at 1.618 Hz. Could it be the desert's song? The increased magnetic activity, the rhythmic seismic signature, it all points to something far beyond lodestone. Dr. Petrova's final, heavily redacted report makes a chilling observation. The self-healing material, when observed under time-lapse microscopy, showed growth. Microscopic tendrils, thinner than a human hair, extending outwards from the fractured surface. It wasn't just repairing, it was expanding. This wasn't a rock. This wasn't a machine. This was something else entirely. Something that defies our definitions. The entity beneath the Atacama is not merely waking, it is growing. And the drill, meant to penetrate its secrets, may have instead become its catalyst. What happens when a biomechanical giant, dormant for 1.2 million years, decides to fully awaken? Meant to penetrate its secrets, may have instead become its catalyst. What happens when a biomechanical giant, dormant for 1.2 million years, decides to fully awaken? The answer, for the men and women of Project Chimera, was immediate and brutal. Official reports state that no human casualties occurred during the initial phase of the anomaly's activation. But 3 documents, declassified in 2019, tell a different story. They speak of a rapid evacuation. They speak of a containment failure. They speak of a sacrifice. The public was told the site was closed due to geological instability. But you know the magnetic pulse intensified. You know the material was growing. The team, initially exhilarated by their discovery, quickly found themselves in a desperate fight. Dr. Elena Petrova, the brilliant geologist, had argued for caution. Her notes, meticulously preserved despite the chaos, reveal her growing unease. She wrote, "It is not reacting to us. It is observing us." Think about that for a moment. An object buried for over 1,000,000 years, capable of observation. The engineers, accustomed to the predictable world of mechanics, were overwhelmed. Their carefully designed containment protocols failed. The self-healing alloy, which had once been a scientific marvel, became a terrifying, unstoppable force. It expanded. It reshaped itself. It was no longer confined to the core sample. It began to spread through the drill shaft itself. Imagine the terror. Imagine the claustrophobia. You are 612 meters underground. The only way out is through a tunnel that is actively changing around you. The official report mentions minor equipment damage to the drilling platform, but eyewitness accounts, from individuals who wish to remain anonymous, describe a scene of utter devastation. The platform, a marvel of modern engineering, was twisted and buckled. Metal groaned and shrieked under unseen forces. The ground itself vibrated with a deep, resonant hum. This was the stone heart singing, and its song was not a lullaby. It was a warning. Dr. Petrova, in her final entries, detailed the material's rapid assimilation of the surrounding rock. It wasn't just growing, it was integrating. It consumed the granite, transforming it into more of itself. The rate of expansion was exponential. Within hours, the drill shaft, a 1.5-meter-wide conduit to the surface, was compromised. And here's the part nobody talks about. The emergency evacuation procedures were designed for human error, for mechanical failure, not for a living, growing entity. The team had mere minutes to ascend. Many did not make it. The official count of missing personnel was 4. But whispers among the surviving crew suggest a number closer to a dozen. These were men and women with families, with lives. Their names were erased from the official records, their stories silenced. The unspecified atmospheric disturbances that created the no-fly zone were, in fact, localized bursts of electromagnetic energy. Energy strong enough to scramble communication systems, to induce hallucinations, to cause physical harm. One survivor, a lead engineer named Javier, later described seeing shadows that moved like water in the flickering emergency lights. He spoke of a pervasive, low-frequency hum that vibrated through his bones. He never fully recovered. The academic world often dismisses such accounts as stress-induced trauma. But what if Javier was simply describing what he saw? What if his mind was simply trying to comprehend the incomprehensible? The entity was not merely a physical presence. It was something that affected the very perception of reality around it. The stories of the local indigenous communities, dismissed as folklore, suddenly took on a chilling new meaning. The stone heart that sings and brings destruction. They were not just legends. They were warnings. They were prophecies. The area around the drill site, now a restricted zone, remains under constant surveillance, not to study the anomaly, but to contain it, because the self-healing, biomechanical giant beneath the desert is not just awake, it is aware, and it remembers. What do you think it remembers after 1.2 million years of silence? After 1.2 million years of silence, the question assumes a mind like ours, a mind that records events, faces, and names. But what if memory, on that scale, is something else entirely? It is not the memory of a single life. It is the memory of life itself. The patient rhythm of geology, the silent dance of cosmic radiation, the deep, unbroken hum of existence. After the chaotic events of 2013, Project Chimera was officially dismantled. Its assets were absorbed into a new, multinational consortium known only by its internal designation, the Chorus. Its mission is no longer containment, it is communication. And here is where the story pivots. They stopped trying to drill it. They stopped trying to fight it. They started to listen. That initial frequency, 1.618 Hz, it wasn't a random number. It is a mathematical constant that appears everywhere in nature, in the spiral of a galaxy, the branching of a tree, the proportions of your own hand. It wasn't a threat, it was a greeting, spoken in the universal language of mathematics. The official reports still call it a magnetotelluric anomaly. But why? Because admitting the truth would change everything we thought we knew. Satellite data from the last 5 years, which we have obtained, shows something remarkable. The entity's growth has stopped. The seismic tremors have ceased. The magnetic field has stabilized into a complex but predictable pattern. It has found its equilibrium. It's not dead. It's not dormant. It's breathing, in rhythm with the planet, and the desert around it is changing. The unspecified atmospheric disturbances have created a unique microclimate. For the first time in recorded history, dew forms on the rocks before dawn. Lichens, previously thought impossible in this region, have been documented within the restricted zone. Hardy species of grass are taking root. Life is returning to the driest place on Earth. Remember the indigenous legend of the stone heart? It spoke of destruction, but it also spoke of life. Perhaps we only heard the part we were afraid of. So why is the area still a no-fly zone? Why the armed guards? They're not keeping something in, they're keeping us out. The Chorus Consortium is now in a silent race, not for a weapon, but for the greatest prize in human history: first contact. The chance to understand the knowledge held within a 1.2 million-year-old consciousness, the Antikythera mechanism, the Baghdad battery. They were never just artifacts. They were lessons, fragments of a primer left for a species that would one day be ready to learn. We spent centuries looking to the stars for signs of intelligence. We built telescopes to scan distant galaxies. We sent probes into the void. All this time, the greatest wonder was right here, beneath our feet. The real discovery was not the biomechanical giant. It was the sudden, humbling realization that our history is just one chapter in a much older story, that our definition of life is hopelessly small. We have been the sole narrators of our